You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hello, everybody. I am starting us off this week with a joke. It's a really good joke, guys.
Yes, I love jokes.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, you ready? What's black and white and black and white and black and white and green?
The green threw me off, Victoria.
At first I was picturing like a zebra rolling down a hill.
Is it a grass-stained zebra?
Close. 3 zebras fighting over a pickle. Okay, so it wasn't a really good joke. Sorry about that. Somehow zebras. I feel like zebras and other black and white animals just seem to invite stupid jokes, so I needed to start off the episode with that.
I'm going to think about that tomorrow.
Most people can agree. Thank you, Rachel. You're making my night.
I'm just not sure if she's going to talk about pickles or about zebras.
I think zebras.
Zebras.
That's what, okay.
Most people can agree that zebras are pretty remarkable looking animals. So most mammals, if you think about mammals as a group, are brown or tan, maybe reddish orange if you're getting really fancy, white, gray, black, right? Pretty dull colors if you compare it to some of the amazing colors that you could see on insects, birds, fish, amphibians, reptiles, corals, many different other kinds of sea slugs, different kinds of animals.
Yeah.
Zebras, though, that pattern is very flashy, right?
For a mammal, yeah.
For a mammal. It's also kind of confusing from an evolutionary perspective because the reason most mammals are so dull looking is for camouflage. And because most mammals don't use color for sexual signaling or for warning coloration. So there are very few poisonous mammals. And zebras are a prey animal, right?
Yeah. Right. And they're in the savanna.
Yeah.
Where it's mostly brown.
So it doesn't make sense for them to have like a warning coloration.
Right. Yeah. And you would think that they would want to be camouflaged too, logically.
Could be useful in a habitat with large feline predators chasing you.
Such as a lion, for example.
Such as a lion, correct.
Leopard.
So I can't remember for sure what I was taught in school about this, but I know that I heard as a kid that zebra stripes actually were for camouflage in the grasslands. The stripes have somehow like made them blend in with the grass, maybe like at twilight. This is pretty far-fetched if you actually look at pictures of zebras. Like you can Google it and you're like, there are a couple where they're like in the grass and you're like, maybe not really. I can still really see that zebra.
Well, does their predator have I might be jumping the gun, but does their predator have vision that would make it harder for them to be able to see the black and white?
It's a fair question, Rachel.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I think that they're probably attempting to do some research into that area. But it can be hard to figure out what other animals see.
Yeah. I bring it up because I know that's true. I know that tiger coloration, we wouldn't think it would work very well, but in the eyes of their prey animal, I know that prey animal can't see orange, so they blend in really well in the forest.
So it's like when hunters are wearing the blaze orange. Yeah.
So it's possible that could well be. There are a few other kind of more reasonable hypotheses that I've heard, more reasonable on the face of them anyway. So one is that the stripes act as a kind of confusion camouflage that make it hard.
That's what I had always heard.
Yeah, that's kind of the main one I've heard more recently until I started hearing this other thing that I'm going to talk about. So making it hard for predators to tell kind of where one zebra stops and the next begins. This is really a hard hypothesis to test if you think about it.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of scientific support for it. It's a cool idea. You could be like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Maybe, yeah, but hard to tell. Another idea is...
Can I ask, is the lack of scientific support, it's not that scientists think it's not likely, it's that it's very hard to test for? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And I think there may have been some experiments done that didn't really... I didn't dig into this a whole lot, to be honest.
Okay. Because you've got something else for us.
Yes, I have some. I'm going down a different path here.
I'm intrigued. So
another idea is that the stripes are really there for other zebras to help them identify each other. And they do each have a unique stripe pattern, kind of like a fingerprint. So, that's possibly legit. Another kind of more out there one is that the stripes are for cooling. So,
what?
Stick with me here. The black areas heat up more quickly and more than the white areas. And this
True.
Could lead to a kind of sort of surface level turbulence, leading to more evaporation of sweat and more cooling. Yeah, Kirk is making a very skeptical face.
Yeah, more turbulence than, say, I don't know, walking.
Right.
Running, galloping.
Yeah.
Now, there have been some experiments.
I don't doubt that there's an effect. I question whether or not it's going to really make much of a difference.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There have been some experiments that support this somewhat and some that don't so much. So more research is needed. Mm-hmm. Recently, though, here I'm getting to what I'm actually talking about.
Okay.
There has been evidence for a different hypothesis. Fly deterrence.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Biting flies are a really big deal in Africa. You may have heard of the tsetse fly. They transmit sleeping sickness. There are also other diseases that are spread by flies, biting flies. And that could be like a really major source of disease and death, not only for people, but also for animals. And so I'm not exactly sure who came up with this idea, but basically there was this ecologist in the UK, Tim Caro, and he'd already done a lot of research on this hypothesis in Africa, and he had been able to link a stronger stripe pattern in zebras to geographical areas that have more biting flies. But back home in the UK, he actually encountered an amazing opportunity to do some experiments because there is this landowner in the UK who has a herd of zebras.
Okay.
Yeah. This is for conservation purposes, actually. So they kind of like a breeding stock for zoos and some stuff along that line.
Okay.
So this landowner has some zebras, and they also have some horses. And zebras in this situation are a lot easier to observe than in the wild because they're used to people and they're kind of in a more enclosed area. So they were able to observe that both the zebras and the horses seemed to attract flies about the same amount, but the flies were much less likely to actually land successfully on the zebras than the horses. They would try to land. Something about the stripes seems to confuse their visual system, and they would like bounce off instead of stick in the landing.
All right.
Like zoom in and like veer off or not, or bounce off.
Okay.
Which is just kind of hilarious to think about these inept flies trying to land on a zebra. Even more funny, as a follow-up experiment, they got zebra-striped coats for the horses.
I was just thinking, okay, go on.
I love this.
And they found that flies were also less likely to land on a horse if it was wearing a striped coat, but they would still land on the horse's head, which did not have stripes on it.
See, here was my thought.
Needs a hat.
I work in a park that in July is absolutely overrun with deer flies.
I am right there with you, Kirk.
And so I was thinking,
haiku for
back in the 80s, I had a pair of black and white Zubaz pants. I don't own them anymore, but you can get them online. And I did actually just do a web search while you were talking, and you can buy an entire black and white zebra striped suit, like a dress suit. And I was like, maybe July I should just teach in that.
Yes.
And see if the flies leave me alone.
Now,
it is $100, so we're going to need a few more patrons to sign up to make that happen.
I think you need this, Kirk.
I'm willing to do that research for our listeners.
Well, you know what, Kirk? I'm going to go you one better. My last bullet point here was, so I Googled to see, and if you Google zebra striped coats for horses.
Right.
There are a few that are advertised as fly deterrent, but there doesn't seem to be a huge market yet. And there is no marketing of this for people. I think this is an underdeveloped area for a business venture. If you or any of our listeners are looking to make a buck in fly deterrent clothing.
Call it the Strange by Nature suit.
There it is.
Yes.
I have a haiku to share that was written for My Job is Fun Day. I hate biting flies. I really hate biting flies. I hate biting flies.
That was mine.
There it is. It was Kirk.
Yeah, that was a tough year.
Oh.
Tell you what, I'm serious though. If you if our patrons can come through and we get enough support, we'll get some sort of zebra striped suit and go out in the woods and test it out. That would be amazing.
I would
That'd be
love to
so
see
cool.
pictures of that.
I want to be there. And be
We'll do it. We should do like a fashion shoot. That'd be astounding.
Yeah. All right. And on that note, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, it's going to be Kirk's turn.
Strange by Nature podcast is brought to you by listeners like you who have joined the Society of Strange, our membership group on over at patreon.com/strangebynature. Society of Strange members can join at one of 3 different membership levels and help support the show and also get some fun stuff like water bottle stickers or access to super secret content. So thank you to those who have joined already to help make this podcast possible. If you haven't joined yet, we'll see you soon over at the Society of Strange at patreon.com/strangebynature. See you soon. Rachel and Victoria, have you noticed anything different outside lately?
There's a lot of things that are different outside.
Give me a category here. There are a lot of things outside.
Phenologically different.
Well, it's starting
cooler.
to turn from summer into fall. The days are getting shorter.
Anything else?
The leaves are starting to
There's
change.
sort of a big one. Oh, you don't say, Rachel. The leaves are starting to change. There you are. We live here in the Northland, and fall is upon us. And as a professional naturalist, and I'm sure you, keep pretty close tabs on phenology, that is the changing of the seasons and associated natural phenomenon. And pretty much with clockwork precision, I noticed the first leaves turning yellow about 1 to 2 weeks before the start of the Minnesota State Fair.
Yeah.
Now, that was quite a while ago. And you see, there you go. You said that's weird. And for those following along at home who are not Minnesotans and don't know when the Minnesota State Fair is, that means I usually start to see the first color in the first week or 2 of August. Now, whenever I post about this on social media, I get the inevitable "too soon" response from people. I think for some people this is just like a lamentation on the end of summer, and you know what? Fair enough if you love summer. I think for others, though, they literally mean that they think it is occurring too soon, and they're worried. Like, oh, why are the trees changing, so early this year?
I mean,
and to be clear,
they're stressed.
Yeah.
It's been a drought, so.
Okay, but keep in mind what I said, Rachel. This is when I see the trees turning yellow every single year.
Oh.
Not just this year. Yeah. And I always do like a social media post, that first week or 2 in August. And I'm like, there you go, first fall color. And people are always perplexed by like, well, it's not, what do you mean? It's not fall. Why are you seeing that? This is normal. This is what we always see. It takes about 2 to 2.5 months for the change to fully occur. And yeah, you are right though, Rachel. It is those trees that are a little bit stressed that might start to do it first. But I know like at our work, there's one tree that is always the very first one to kind of turn yellow. Now, I did notice this year, it turned a little bit yellow, then started to turn brown.
Yeah.
So I think it might have been a tree that this year, the drought actually means that it is dying, whereas most years it might just mean that it's, maybe it's always a little bit stressed out or something, and that's why it changes sooner. So we are sliding closer and closer to the autumnal colors for those of us in the northern hemisphere, and I thought it'd be good to do a deep dive on the strange science of leaf colors.
Beautiful.
So, first off, we think of leaves being green because they reflect green light and absorb other colors, and this is due to pigments in the leaves. They serve functions in the leaves other than just making pretty colors. So they have reasons for being there, and it isn't just to make us go, ooh, and marvel at them. But the main pigment we see in the summer is chlorophyll, which is essential for photosynthesis and the making of food from sunlight. And, the green color is what's not useful to this process, so it gets reflected. That is kind of an oversimplification of what's going on, but I'm going to go with it. You could literally have a podcast dedicated just to photosynthesis and probably have a good 100 episodes and not run out of stuff to talk about on just that topic, but we're going to stop there with the color green because we don't really care about the green, right? We talk about the other colors. So in the fall, there are important changes that happen in leaves as they get ready for the winter, and leaves falling off is structurally important to the survival of trees, and we often don't think about that at all. So first off, standard leaves cannot function in the winter as they freeze and become useless. I mean, you can have needles, which is sort of a specialized leaf, but your general deciduous broadleaf kind of leaf, it's not going to function once it's freezing out there because they're full of water, right? So they're going to freeze and become useless, but more than just being useless, they're actually a liability. All those water-filled leaves are heavy, and trees need stiff, inflexible, and stout branches to hold all of them up. And they're usually up to the task. But when it snows, thousands of pounds of frozen water is added onto those limbs, right? So it can get very heavy. And that's when there's no leaves on there. If there's leaves on there, all those leaves are also collecting and holding onto snow. I tried to look up if anyone had done like the math on this, like in a really super scientific way, and I couldn't find good numbers. So I just did some sort of back of the envelope math. If you have a large tree, like a big oak tree with like a 50 square foot canopy, which is not unreasonable for an oak tree. Snow weighs about 20 pounds per cubic foot. So you'd end up with 25,000 pounds of snow on a tree if you had a 1 foot deep snowfall event, like a big snowstorm, which is around here not impossible.
That's why those clearly occasional October snowstorms that we get or happen in the Northeast sometimes are so problematic.
Exactly, because the leaves are still on the trees gather up way more weight than they can sustain, and you get all these branches snapping off. So the leaves falling off in the fall are critical to the survival and the health of the trees. They want to protect their vital growing structure for the next growing season. So in the fall, something called an abscission layer grows in the stalk of the leaf, and this becomes the point where the leaf is going to break off. But also, it cuts the leaf off from the rest of the tree, and this is when we start to see the fall colors. When chlorophyll no longer serves a function, it starts to die, and we lose the green color in leaves, and this is when we start to see the underlying colors that have been there all along, but covered up by the green. The first colors we see are yellows and oranges, and they're caused by a familiar friend from last week, carotenoids.
There it is.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, so the carotenoids, like this all came from Rachel's flamingo topic. The carotenoids in those leaves are there all the time, right? Things like beta carotene or the lutein, and when the green is no longer there, you can see them. But the story doesn't end just there. Nature has one more strange quirk to reveal before winter comes. The truly show-stopping reds and purples of autumn are caused by something completely different. The deep reds of maple and other species are caused by something called an anthocyanin, and the name literally means plant blue. So antho for plant and cyanin for blue, which seems
counterintuitive,
kind of weird because you're like, blue,
plant
like
blue,
and you can get little bits of blues like in leaves in the fall as well if you really look. But I gotta sort of back up and talk about anthocyanins a little bit. They're found naturally in all kinds of plants, but the most familiar place you'll see them is in red cabbage. You've all seen a red cabbage?
Yeah.
Here's the weird thing though. What color is a red cabbage?
It's kind of purple.
Purple. It's not red, is it?
No.
Why do we call it a red cabbage? Doesn't make any sense?
People in history called all kinds of things red that weren't actually red.
And that's totally fair, totally fair. But I have another theory why it might be called red cabbage, though. And it's super, super cool. It may have to do with a quirk of the anthocyanin molecule. It reflects light that looks, say, purple when it's in that red cabbage because of the actual physical shape of the molecule, right? So it is reflecting purple light because of its shape. This molecule changes shape depending on the pH of its environment.
Yes, I know this.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you put purple cabbage leaves into a salad and you then pour an acidic vinegar-based dressing on them, the pigments will actually change shape and literally reflect light at a different wavelength, and the leaves will now look red instead of purple.
Yeah.
So it could be one of the reasons we call it red cabbage is that we often eat it in like vinegar, and so when we see it on the plate, it actually looks red, even though when you bought it at the store, it was purple.
There's actually
really cool?
a pretty fun science experiment you could do at home with red cabbage.
Oh, yeah.
Where you whiz it in a blender with some water, and then you can put it into a bunch of different containers and add different amounts of different types of acidic and basic substances to it. And it does create a whole spectrum of different colors. So if you put bases in, it gets blue and then green, I think, at the very basic end.
All the way to green.
Yeah, and then the more acid you add to it, the redder and pinker it gets. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I did this with my summer campers this summer, actually, and we did, we did like soda pop, milk, borax, like laundry booster, Windex, or some kind of like ammonia-based cleaner, and you can get just wild colors. And it's all the same molecule, so it kind of seems like magic.
That's really cool.
So anthocyanins are obviously in some leaves, but they're not really in the leaves that we're seeing on the trees. And so what's happening is that anthocyanins are produced in the leaves in the fall when sugars react with sunlight. So leftover sugar from photosynthesis that didn't get out of the leaf in time, it got kind of stuck in there, is essentially chemically converted into anthocyanins by the sunlight. And so depending on the pH of the leaf, you're going to get anything from a red to a purple to even a blue. And when they combine with the reflected colors of the carotenoids, you can get all kinds of other mixes of colors as well. So it's super cool that like all these colors are coming together in the fall. And there's actually a lot of chemistry involved. And people try to make predictions on like how much fall colors we're going to have each year. And some of that has to do with how much sunlight did we get, how much water is there, how much sugar is in the leaves. There's a lot of different things that combine. And it's not surprising because you have to have sugar in order to make it. That when you have plants that are very high in sugars, like sugar maple, they end up with some of the reddest and purplest leaves in the fall because they have a lot of sugars, whereas something like an oak tree that isn't really known for producing a lot of extra sugars is just kind of yellow and brown, and you don't get those bright colors.
Right.
So eventually all the molecules do break down once they're on the ground, and the leaves all kind of end up brown on the forest floor. So when you're out this fall doing some leaf peeping, take a moment to marvel at the amazing chemicals in leaves whose literal physical structure just happens to reflect light at specific wavelengths that bring us delight, which I think is pretty
really
strange
cool.
and pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Definitely strange.
Well, we're going to take a little break, and then Rachel, I hope you got something strange for us.
Oh, do I. Welcome back. Now, strangely, I'm heading over with all of you to New Zealand for our next...
Oh, we're going to New Zealand? Awesome.
I didn't know we were
We're all going
Oh
to
my
New
gosh.
Zealand. Woohoo!
Yay!
Wow.
But
I'm not totally comfortable traveling right now, but okay.
we're...
I mean, if you're going
sorry.
to go anywhere, New Zealand seems like a pretty good place
good.
to go.
I'm not sure they would let us in.
they're
But
not.
They won't let us
let's
in.
go.
So, I'm sorry. I got our hopes up. I meant we're going in our brains. We're not actually...
Oh, I thought you had like bought us tickets. Okay, well,
That would be so cool.
I guess
But
that'll.
no.
The New
have to
Zealand
wait.
tour will have to wait.
That'd be an amazing tour. So we're in our brains, we're going over to New Zealand, and we're going to learn about their largest reptile. Okay. It's an extant species of reptile that's all that's left over from this genus from like the time of the dinosaurs. There used to be way more.
Oh,
kind of going on a extant living fossil streak, it seems.
Right, this is the reptilian ginkgo.
Yep. So it's all that's left. There used to be numerous and other species, but now it's just this one. Now, this reptile looks a lot like what you would think of for a lizard.
Okay.
However, this species is not a snake. It's not a lizard. Its closest living relative is the squamates. So that particular genus of snakes and lizards.
What's the squamates again? Remind me.
Refresh our memory.
Squamates are lizards and snakes.
Okay.
Pretty much. It's that group.
Okay, so it's related to them, but it's
not. It's like separated group. They separated, and then we got lizards and snakes, and then we have this little guy. I
think I know the name of this, Rachel.
Ooh, that's exciting. So the genus is the Sphenonodon genus, and its name is the Tuatara. Is that what you were thinking, Victoria?
That's the one I was thinking of.
Cool.
So the
I wasn't sure if it was Tuatara or how exactly it was pronounced.
I'm going with Tuatara. Mainly because I do not speak Maori, which is where
it's pronounced Maori.
Maori. I thought it was Maori.
See, you clearly that's she just proved a point. Perfect.
So it is from the Maori. Darn it. Which means peaks on the back. So, generally speaking, this species of reptile is pretty unique. Like I was saying, it looked a lot like a lizard, what you would think of as a lizard. It's not a lizard, to a point where, like, a lot of people think it is a lizard, but it isn't. Kind of think of it as looking similar to an iguana and a bearded dragon. Kind of has like a bearded dragon shaped face and an iguana style body. It's a greenish brown and gray animal, and is about 31 inches in length from the tip of its tail to its head, and it has a spiny crest along the back. That spiny crest is especially prominent in males, and they actually use it to like put the spikes up to attract a female. They have 2 rows of teeth in their upper jaw, which actually overlaps with 1 row on the lower jaw, which is weird as all get out.
Yeah,
so does like the lower jaw row fit in between the 2 upper jaw rows, basically?
Yeah. That's really cool.
It's really cool, and it's very unique. It's not found in like any other living species, really. And it actually allows them to, they are able to live with birds, but they also, I believe that there was one thing that I read, like generally speaking, they eat like beetles and worms and millipedes and spiders, but they will also eat lizards and seabird eggs and chicks. And because of how their jaws are, they can, and how their teeth are, they're able to like decapitate a bird, which is crazy.
Wow.
However, that's not the only strange thing that they have. They also have a pronounced third eye. They are known as like the third eye lizard. They're not a lizard, which is strange because it's not a true eye. It's photoreceptive, and it's something that scientists think is more for, like I said, photoreceptive. So like for circadian rhythms, being able to time the changing of the seasons, because they actually change their circadian rhythm. When they're young, they are a diurnal species. But when they're an adult, they are a nocturnal species.
Oh, weird.
Which is very bizarre. Whoa. Most animals do not change that over.
And it's not like an eye, like, you don't see it when they're an adult. Like, there's not an actual eyeball there.
There's not an eyeball there, no.
It's under the skin, kind of. But it actually has, like, a lens, even. Like, I mean, it's pretty wild.
Prominent. You can see it. Which is why it's so bizarre.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's also called the parietal eye.
Right.
It does have its own lens, and it has something that resembles a cornea, a retina with a rod-like structures and like nerve connections to the brain. But it's
cool.
It's not super duper seen when they become more of an adult. But you can see it very clearly when they're hatchlings, when it's like pretty translucent. The patch is pretty lucent. There we go.
Gotcha.
Which is real weird.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah. So they also, like turtles, actually, they have the most primitive hearing organs. So they can hear, but they don't have any external ears. So there's no ear holes. But they're still able to hear with no ear hole. There's not an eardrum or anything like that, or a tympanum. And it's mostly like filled with the middle ear is mostly filled with loose tissue. But it's still able to like get the vibrations and everything and translate it to sound in their brain.
Sure.
Which is bizarre. They are found in 32 small islands all around New Zealand. They are not found on the mainland anymore. They have been driven out of that because of rats mostly.
Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, so their biggest threat is actually a big problem.
Really big problem in New Zealand. Cats, rats.
Yeah, so they face a lot of threats when it comes to mice, rats, some habitat destruction, as well as pretty low genetic diversity. There's not necessarily a ton of them. So I don't want to end the episode on that saddish type note. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some more unusual things, just a couple, including how old that they can be. So they have one of the slowest growth rates of any reptile, but they keep growing until they're 35 years old. Their average lifespan is about 60 years, but they can live up to about 100 years, which is pretty old for like a little lizard-looking reptile.
Yeah.
I mean, turtles beat them pretty easily, but yeah, that's still pretty old.
Turtles are a special beast. They also, which is pretty unusual, they are ectotherms, which also another phrase that we have is cold-blooded. They're actually pretty active in cool weather. So they don't thrive in constant temperatures of like really cold temperatures. And when I say that, I mean like 25 degrees Celsius.
That's probably about it's like 75 degrees or so.
Yeah. So, which isn't really super cold, but generally when it comes to the being able to withstand colder temperatures in a for a lizard-like reptile, like they're pretty good at that. To the point where their eggs, if it gets to be too cold, they can actually stop development while they're still in the egg until it warms up enough for them to start developing again.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I don't have that much else for the Tuatara, but they're a really cool looking reptile, and the fact that they are a reptile but not a lizard, it kind of trips my brain up a lot.
Right, because they look just like a lizard.
They look just like a lizard. It's really weird. Yeah, but that's all I have for you all today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Everyone. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.